Hey there, welcome back to another episode of Broke Up, Not Broken. If you're going through a divorce, don't worry, you're not alone. This is your one stop shop for mastering your life and your finances throughout the entire divorce process. In today's episode, we're talking with Liam Naden. Liam is a marriage and relationships expert with an emphasis on using the right mindset to create the best solutions in relationships and your life. He is the author of several books, including Marriage Uncounseling, a counterintuitive approach to healing relationships and bringing back love. The host of two podcasts, Let Yourself Off the Hook, which is about life success, and Growing in Love for Life, about marriage and relationships. He's also a coach and the creator of a number of online coaching programs, including his 7-day course, Get Past Your Breakup. So if you're feeling overwhelmed by your divorce or just in your current station in life, please don't be. Liam is here to help us break it down so you can feel confident and prepared by creating a clear picture of not only your financial situation, but how you can tackle the personal challenges that you might be facing during this phase of your life. So grab a cup of coffee or your beverage of choice, buckle up, and let's get you personally and financially empowered. Welcome, Liam.
Hello, Jamie. Thank you very much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you carving out some time to chat with us. This is going to be a fascinating conversation. I think your expertise in divorce and marriage and personal development is going to really hit home with our listeners here. And I'm a fan of it, even though I'm kind of a finance guy. I love this aspect of the work that we do. So I'm looking to learn a lot from you on this. So first off, I mean, we talked a little bit, coming up to this conversation about what you're doing right now, which is amazing. You're a nomad traveling the country and seeing amazing areas of the world. So how did you get into this particular line of work? And like, because it's really, really fascinating to me. How did you get to do what you're doing right now?
Well, probably like people listening and watching, I went through a bad divorce myself. In fact, I went through a couple of bad divorces, and one of them coincided with me going from being a multi-millionaire and having a really nice lifestyle to literally becoming homeless. I lost everything, and I had to move in and live with my elderly mother and sleep on the sofa in the living room of her small apartment. So I lost my marriage and I lost all my businesses, my income, and I lost everything. But what I learned from that experience was really the greatest gift that I could possibly have been given. And I think that's one of the things I think we should talk about, or we could talk about, is that when you're going through a really tough time, and there's nothing tougher really than going through a divorce, or potentially tougher, it's very easy to lose sight of the big picture, that you're actually, and I know it sounds a bit corny perhaps to say it, but you're actually being given a gift. You're being given an opportunity to learn, to grow, and maybe do something completely different, and your life to go in a completely different direction to what you thought it was going to go in. Because we all have these ideas when we get married about what's going to happen and how it's all going to turn out. But all of those, of course, dreams get crashed when we go through a divorce. So the same thing happened to me, but I came out the other side and I said to myself, I'm terrible at this relationship thing. I want to become an expert on it. I want to really learn about what makes a relationship tick, so that I don't go through the same experiences that I've already had. And during that process, and I really started to learn about relationships, both from my own experience and also what I was learning from others. At about that time, I managed to attract to myself an amazing relationship, much better than I ever thought would be possible for me. And I started to create a life for myself that I didn't think was possible for me either. And I set myself up again with businesses. And then I started sailing around the world and traveling around the world and doing all sorts of really exciting things. But that's how I got into marriage and relationship coaching, because what I discovered is that most of us have been taught the wrong things about what a relationship actually is, how to make it work, and what to do when it goes off the rails. And I think that's why there's so much stress and frustration and hurt there. It's really, a lot of it is simply misinformation. So I thought, I'm going to really try and help other people to understand and improve their relationships. And that's what I did. And I created some online coaching programs, which I still have. Some of them are about saving your marriage, and some of them are also about getting through a divorce. You mentioned Get Past Your Breakup. But and even though I say it myself, they've been very successful. They've helped a lot of people either heal their relationship or get through to the other side, as it were, with the minimum amount of scarring possible. But one thing that always puzzled me when I was helping people and people who enrolled in my programs is that I couldn't understand why some people taking the same information, why some people got good results, they got what they wanted, they either healed their marriage or they moved on to what I was hoping for them through the Get Past Your Breakup program, which is a much better, more fulfilling life. They either succeeded or they didn't. And I wanted to find out what the difference was between real success, both in relationships and in healing your life, and life success in general, what the difference was between people who succeeded and those who didn't. And what I discovered was it was nothing to do with motivation. It was nothing to do with the amount of information people had. It wasn't a question of how determined people were to overcome the adversity that they were faced with. And it wasn't anything to do with prayer or belief or faith. What it came down to was a different mindset, a different way they were using their brain. And that's what led me into being more and more fascinated with this whole idea that actually the results you get in your life are not the result of hard work, struggle, stress, frustration, and anger, and, stress. They're actually the result of something quite different, and it comes down to how you use your brain. So that's what I do now, is I help people in their relationships, but also other areas of their life, to get much better results by really using this machine that we have between our ears in a far more effective way.
That is incredible. I had no idea. I should have asked more questions in our lead up to this conversation, but I always like learning about people as we go and trying to do this on the fly. But so you lose the businesses, you're sleeping on your mother's couch effectively, and you didn't have, maybe you had a little bit of this experience and this knowledge at that point, but I'm going to guess that as you continue to learn and grow, it was easier to get yourself out of that quagmire. A lot of the people that we work with are in some pretty challenging situations. There could be things like domestic violence, financial abuse, you name it. Just really, I'm working with a couple of clients that are living in shelters. It's really, really bad. And they're in the first inning. They're in the very early stages of their divorce. And some haven't even said that they haven't even filed for divorce yet. So they have a long way to go. What was that tipping point or that moment in time when you were sleeping on your mother's couch and you just said, okay, I've got to pick myself up by my bootstraps, so to speak, and move forward with this. And this is how I'm going to do that, because I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't try to pretend to be one, but I understand, there's that grieving period and the mourning period that we all have to go through, and the emotional roller coaster, so to speak, that we all have to wade through as we're going through a divorce. What was the impetus for you to just kind of push that behind you and just say, okay, I've got to turn this thing around and be able to do what you've done?
Well, interestingly, it's quite different to what you might think. It wasn't a question of determination and me saying to myself, I'm going to overcome this challenge, I'm going to get through this. It was actually quite the opposite, because as I was lying there on my mother's uncomfortable couch trying to get to sleep and worrying about all the problems that I had and people after me for money and all of the stress around the relationship breakup and the financial breakup that I was experiencing, two questions kept coming to my mind. And I'm sure anyone listening, if you're going through this experience of the real stress, I must say, I have been through it. There's nothing worse than losing everything and not knowing where to turn. And the two questions that kept coming up into my mind, the first question was, why has this happened to me? Why am I faced with this awful situation? And for people, whatever your situation, if there is, yes, abuse or whatever the problems are, I'm sure you're probably asking that question. And you're saying to yourself, I didn't really deserve this. I don't deserve this. And that's the way I felt, because I always thought I was a good person. I'd really tried my best. I'd tried to be honest and ethical and loving. And I'd also always tried to put in 100% to whatever I was doing, whether it was a relationship or a business or anything. And so that question, why is this happening to me? I don't deserve this. Why? That kept coming up. And the second question that I asked myself over and over was, what do I do now? Because I had lost everything. And I thought, I really am so confused about what to do. I just don't know. And if I'm really honest, I don't know what to do. And I think that's what was the tipping point for me. And I later on discovered that it's actually to do with how your brain works. But the tipping point was to realize that the answer to both of those questions, why has this happened to me and what do I do now, the only answer I could give was, I don't know. I simply don't know why it's happened to me, and I don't know what to do. And what I didn't realize is that when you actually accept that it's not your fault, you don't know what to do, you don't know why it's happened, instead of trying to analyze and try and figure out the answer and do all those sorts of things, which from my experience, you'll never get to the bottom of. You'll never find out the real reasons why your relationship is ending, or why you'll never find out exactly what it is you should be doing. But when you let that go, and when you admit and accept that you don't know the answers, it's the first step to activating a different part of your brain. And it's a part of your brain, this is a biological function we're talking about. It's a part of your brain that actually is there designed to give you the best life possible. And I know when you're facing all of these horrible problems and things, it's very difficult to say, what do you mean the best life possible? My brain isn't giving me the best life possible. This is all hell, you know?
Yeah.
But there is a part of our brain that literally is designed to lead us in the best direction possible, because we have this biological purpose. We're all wired biologically to survive. We live in this biological world, and every living thing, including us, the primary purpose of all life is to survive. And the way we best survive is by being our best. And that means not just physically our best, it means mentally and emotionally our best, which actually means to be happy. So we have a biological purpose to be happy. And I know that sounds really ridiculous when you think about it, when there's so much misery around us. But really, on a biological level, we are designed to be happy. And we have this machine called a brain, which is designed to bring us and to make sure everything that happens in our life to give us the greatest chance for survival by being happy, by being fulfilled. So when things go wrong in our life, it's not a question of saying, why does this happen to me? And what did I do wrong? And being confused. It's just a question of saying, quite simply, there's something about the biology of my brain that has caused this to happen. And I can either use this as an opportunity, which is what it is, or I can let it overwhelm me and suppress me. And when you start to see it as an opportunity, you start to change your awareness and realize that you have this brain that is going to make some interesting things happen. And the sorts of things that happened to me when I got into the state of saying, I don't know why this is happening, I don't know what to do, I'm just going to give up and see what happens. And it doesn't mean I'm going to go and sit in a corner and do nothing, but
Yeah.
I'm just going to trust that the right thing is going to show up at the right time. And really weird things started to happen. You know, have people ever had that experience where you go, how did that happen? Where did that person come from? Well, that's a coincidence. Is that just luck? And strange things were happening to me, like somebody would come into my life that I hadn't seen. I remember being in a shop and someone walked in and I hadn't seen him in 25 years, but he recognized me and he said, hey, Liam, you remember me? What are you doing business-wise? What are you doing for an income? Because there's an opportunity come up just near where I work that would be perfect for you. Now, I had no money, but a few months later, there I was with my own business making an income again. And I don't know how it happened, but all of these strange things started to happen. And I, as I say, attracted this amazing relationship. And anyone who's been in the situation, you know, think back to when you got married before your divorce. Were you ever expecting to meet the person who became your husband or your wife? You weren't thinking the day before, I'm going to meet the person I'm going to marry tomorrow. No, they just showed up. So what you start to realize is these seemingly random events, they're not actually random. They only appear to be random to your perception when you're using a limited part of your brain. But when you start to use a better part of your brain, what I call the creative brain, these things start to show up a lot more often. And when you really, really think about it, you have to admit and realize that it is the unexpected things that are going to show up in your life that are going to determine how your life turns out. You know, very often I talk to people who are going through real stress through their marriage breakup, and they're full of fear and anxiety and worry about the future. And I just look at them and I say to them, look, you don't know what's going to happen in the future, but I can guarantee it's going to be great. Why can't you see that everything's going to work out fine? You're going to get through this. And maybe this is going to be a great opportunity to move on to something better. Maybe you can look back on the relationship that's failed and thought, you know, it was fine for me at the time, but it's not right for me moving forward. And then you find someone else far better. And so many people have contacted me when they've been through my coaching and said, Liam, you're not going to believe what my life's like now. You know, I just was so afraid of the end of my marriage and what was going to happen to me. And I can't believe what's happened. I've
Mm.
met this other person who's far better than the person I was married to. My life is far better than it was. I wish I'd ended things years before what I did. Now, none of that's expected, is it? They weren't expecting that. But the reality is that your brain, this biological machine, it's designed to make sure you do the right things, you make the right decisions, you avoid making the wrong decisions, and you get some good results. And you also, sounds weird, but it's biological, people, the right people, start showing up in your life. The right things start showing up in your life. It's how we're biologically designed.
It's incredible because you say that, and as you were saying that, that was exactly what happened in my own situation. Right. Looking back, I probably should have ended my first marriage years prior, but couldn't pull the trigger for whatever reason. I was afraid to do so. I was fearful of the unknown and so on. And once I finally got the gumption to be able to do that, it turned out so much better than it. And even the kids are in a much better spot than they would have been in had I stayed in the marriage. So I would, yeah, I've seen that firsthand myself. So we could talk, we could literally talk, probably we'd have 2 podcasts on personal development and mindset shifting and all that stuff relative to like within the marriage. Like how do you save the marriage? How do you become a better person at work and at home and all that stuff while you're married? We can save that for another conversation. A lot of the people that we work with and the people that are listening are on the, like we've mentioned earlier, on the doorstep of a divorce or in the throes of it right now. So based on your experience, and you've alluded to some of this, but I just want to make sure we clarify, once all attempts at reconciliation are over and you've decided that now, like I'm going to drop the dreaded D word and tell my significant other that I want a divorce, what are some of the lessons that, or maybe even some common factors with people that you work with, that people that like once they've said it, like what are some of the tips and tricks that you can share with us that to change our mindset of, okay, I've dropped the D word, we're going to get a divorce. Now what? Like, what are some of the things I should be thinking about?
Well, I'm sure if you go through that experience, what you are going to be feeling is a lot of stress, fear, and anxiety. And probably what has led you to that decision or that situation is there's a little voice inside you that says, look, this is no longer right for me. This relationship, it's just not working. And the truth is, I need to end it. But there's another voice that says to you, that is terrifying. What's going to happen to you? How do you know that you're not going to end up in a terrible situation? You're going to stay alone and lonely for the rest of your life. It's going to cost you a huge amount financially. What are you going to do? You don't know what to do. So you have these 2 voices going on in your head. One is your gut feeling, which is like your insight saying, this is the right decision. And there's another voice which is saying, don't do this. This is terrifying. The difference is these are actually 2 parts of your brain at work. And the part that's saying to you, just listen, do what I tell you, don't worry, it's all going to work out, that this is the right thing to do. You know that the end of this relationship, I mean, it might be your husband or your wife has told you that they want a divorce, but there's still a little voice inside of you that's maybe thinking, I don't want to admit it, but it probably is the right thing. Because again, I don't want to admit it. This voice, we're very good at shutting it down and pushing it out of the way and ignoring it. But it's probably saying to you on some level, this is what's right, that things weren't going in the right direction. So that part of that little voice is your creative brain at work. And I've got a lot more on my own website about how this part of your brain works. But this is the master part of your life that's designed to lead you to do all of the right things and have all the right things happen in your life so that you have your best life, so that you have your greatest chance for survival, which is your biological purpose. And that's the part of the brain that we should be using and listening to. But there's another part of the brain, which is what I call our survival brain. And that's all about protecting us from danger and threats to our survival. And the way it does that is it makes us feel stressed and afraid, and it reacts to dangerous situations. But what it also does when we activate that part of the brain is we shut down the creative brain. So all of our insight and awareness on the right things to do, we literally can't see it. And I mean, think about maybe if you're in this situation, have you got a friend, or not you, but someone listening I'm talking to? Maybe you've got a friend or a relative who's saying to you, look, don't worry. This is the right thing for you, that your marriage, it's no longer right. You have to move on. But you're going to be fine. Everything's going to work out. You're a wonderful person. Don't worry about the future. Now, we might have somebody else telling us that, but we can't feel it. We can't see it. And we say to ourselves, no, I'm so stressed and upset. And the difference is the reason they can see it is because they haven't activated this survival part of the brain, which is literally blocking your awareness and ability to see the big picture. So what activates that part of the brain is the fear, stress, worry, and anxiety. Biologically, it activates something called the sympathetic nervous system, which creates this state of fighting off a threat or a danger. But it shuts down all of our insight and our intuition and our ability to do the right things. So the most important thing to realize is that, yes, you're going to feel stressed. Yes, you're going to feel awful about the future, but it's your survival brain at work, which is a very limited part of your brain that can't see that actually your future is going to be fine. Things are going to be great. And you're probably going to look back on the situation and say, you know, that was one of the best things that ever happened to me because I learned so much from it.
Mm-hmm.
And I became a much better person. And because I learned so much, I became a much better person. Look at where I am now. I've attracted a much better person into my life. I'm so much more mature, if you like, and empowered in relationships. I'm much better at being in a relationship, and I'm much better at managing my own life. So the key thing is to realize we want to find a way to allow this creative brain to do its job, because it can't show you the right things to do when you're stressed and worried. This is because this is another part of your nervous system that's literally shut down. So that's what we need to learn to activate. And people say to me, so what you're saying is don't feel stressed, afraid, and worried when I'm going through this horrendous situation in my life, because that's activating the wrong part of the brain. Well, I am actually saying that. And people say, well, I can't do that. You might not be able to do all of it, but you can start to become aware of it and realize that you're not going to make the best decisions when you're in a state of stress, fear, worry, and anxiety. So what you really need to work on is starting to put this experience into perspective, into the big picture, and start to say, maybe things could work out really well. Instead of asking myself, why is this happening to me? Ask yourself, why is this happening for me? What's the gift here? Is there a lesson? Is there something I'm going to be able to look back on?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm going to end up like Liam has, where he had this horrible experience, and it's only because he had that experience that what he does now is he helps other people. And maybe that's the reason I'm having this experience is I'm going to be able to help other people that I would never be able to help in any other way unless I'd been through that experience. Who knows what it could bring? And there's nothing more rewarding than helping someone else because of your own experience. And you can't do it from a theoretical, this marriage relationship thing, you can't do it from a theoretical, you can't learn this stuff in a book. You've got to experience it to be able to really understand and help other people. Mm-hmm. So start to put a different perspective on your situation and say, what am I telling myself that's making me feel all this fear, stress, worry, and anxiety? And start to see other possibilities and realize it's just your brain playing tricks on you, because you are going to be fine. I've never met anybody who didn't go through a divorce who didn't end up in a better place after it.
Yeah.
Particularly when they said they were going to learn the lessons of what that was teaching them rather than feeling a victim. So without sounding callous, it's all actually good. You're going to get through it, but you need to use your brain, this machine, in a way that's going to help you get there faster rather than hold you back.
Well, without even knowing it, that's effectively what happened to me. That's why I'm in the line of work that I am, and helping people navigate the financial nuances of divorce is because, I've been a financial planner for almost 20 years, and I think I'm in year 19-ish, somewhere in that range. And for the first 12, 13 years of my life, I was just a financial planner, and I had wanted to do work in the divorce space for many years. And at the time, the company that I was working for just said, we don't do that kind of work here. Just put your head down, kid, and, get back to work and do your thing. And then sure enough, in 2017, I went through the world's, most expensive. And in many ways, I'm still dealing with it. We still will deal with divorce attorneys and everything else. And we're 7 years after I asked for a divorce. So having that experience and living it and breathing it put me in a position where now I can not only sympathize, but I can empathize with people that are going through this exercise and this experience, and really just trying to be there to hold their hand. And, my team and I are on a mission to stop the madness of the whole court situation and paying attorneys gobs and gobs of money of, helping them navigate the divorce. And half these attorneys don't know anything about the financial aspects of it. So that's what we're here for, is to help people make sure that they're not going to jam themselves up for the next 20, 30 years of their life by making bad financial decisions during the divorce. So to that point, and so I want to talk a little bit about the financial aspects of divorce while you're going through it, and some of the mindset things and tips and tricks that you have there. And then the follow-up question to that is I want to talk a little bit about after divorce, but let's talk first about some of the things you need to be cognizant of from a mindset perspective as you're going through the divorce, and maybe trying to intertwine some of the financial aspects of some of the financial decisions that you have to make. Because I've been there myself, even though I have all this experience as a financial planner for many, many years. When I went through my own divorce, I just wanted that damn thing over with. I wanted it over because it was getting expensive and it was very emotional and stressful and everything else. And looking back, I realized, oh, wow, I made a couple of mistakes here along the way from a financial perspective. And a lot of the people that we work with don't have the financial experience and the education that I do. So I know that they're going to make mistakes if they don't leverage someone like myself and work with someone like you through this process. So how do we not only handle the emotions so we don't make bad financial decisions through the divorce?
Well, I think the most important thing is to realize that if you're afraid of making mistakes, you're going to make mistakes. And this is because of, again, of how your brain works, because this whole thing of fear, anxiety, stress, and worry, I mentioned before, it activates your survival brain, which is a very, very limited brain function that you have that's only designed to react and fight against threats or dangers. It's not designed to work anything out. It can't understand. It doesn't have the answers to any problems. It doesn't know the right answers to what you should do or the right decisions you should make. These are all in your creative brain. So when you are worried about making a mistake, ironically, that's when you're going to make the most mistakes. And if you really think about a relationship, when do you make the most mistakes? It's when you're on eggshells and you're trying to not make mistakes in that relationship. So when you're worried about what your spouse is thinking or saying or what they're doing, when you're trying to figure things out, when you're trying to navigate through it, that's when you make lots of mistakes and you do all the wrong things. Whereas when you're just easy and fun in a relationship, like you were when you first met the person you married and things were good, you weren't worried about making mistakes. You just knew that things were good. You were having fun. And again, this is really biological. This is how your brain is designed to make sure that you don't make mistakes. But it can't do it because the non-making mistake part is this creative brain, which doesn't operate when you're feeling fear, stress, worry, and anxiety. And we know this to be true because how often do we think, oh, why did I do that? Why, that was so stupid. That was such a bad decision. And they're always at a time when we're confused, when we're stressed, when we're trying to figure it out, when we're desperately looking for an answer, and we just, oh, I'll do that. And it often turns out to be the wrong thing because we're using this part of the brain that is not designed to make the right decisions. So the main thing I'm getting at is realize that the biggest block you have to not making mistakes is worrying about making mistakes. And instead of worrying about making mistakes, and I'm not saying just go, oh, well, everything will be fine, but even though the reality is everything will be fine, but you need to start changing your perspective and changing your awareness and say, well, say if I did lose everything, what's the worst that could happen? I was terrified of losing everything, and that's what happened to me. But when I actually did, I was still able to eat. I still had clothes. I still had somewhere to sleep, even though it was on the sofa in my mother's apartment. But what's the worst that could happen? And realize it's very unlikely that worst could happen. But what's the best that could happen? Maybe, and we've been talking about, people showing up in your life, or events showing up in your life. Maybe why couldn't something really unexpected happen in your life that's really good? Why couldn't you meet somebody else who could give you some financial assistance, or you come up with a new business idea or a new career, or somebody gives you a raise in what you're doing, or in other words, maybe things could turn out better than you expect. So rather than expecting them to turn out badly, why not expecting, well, maybe why not think that something good will show up? So when you're worried about losing your money, for instance, or getting a rough deal financially, instead think, well, even if I lost everything, why wouldn't my brain, because it's what it's designed to do, bring along something better? I might win the lottery tomorrow. It's possible. If my brain is designed to make sure that I'm going to be fine, which is what it is, as long as I trust and allow it to do its job, and we're dealing with an infinitely powerful computer here, the brain, as long as I allow it to do its job, it's going to look after me. Everything's going to be fine. And just a little aside here, I was brought up, I thought as I started to research about how the brain worked and how fear, anxiety, and stress keep you blocked from the part of your brain that will bring you everything you need, and you make sure you make the right decisions and not make mistakes. I thought I've heard this somewhere before, and I realized where I'd heard it was in the Bible, because the Bible says 365 times, 3 words: be not afraid. And it's not saying be not afraid as, try not to worry so much and things will turn. It's an instruction. Be not afraid, because what it's telling you is that when you're afraid, you shut down your creative brain. You activate this very limited part of your brain that's only there to react to a survival situation. And you shut down all of the resources that are there to make sure that everything is going to work out perfectly for you in your life. And it also says in the Bible, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will take care of itself. Do not worry about what you will eat, drink, or wear. All of these things will be provided for you. Now, this isn't just some idea, because people read that and they go, oh, no, I'd really like to believe that. Well, you don't need to believe that. You just need to understand that's how it works biologically. There's a part of your brain that's designed to bring you everything you need to eat, drink, and wear, but it's not going to bring it to you in the way that you expect. It's going to bring you in different ways. I mean, Jamie, I'm sure that you had never in your wildest dreams, when you were going through your divorce, thought, I'm going to be doing this great podcast and I'm going to be doing this financial help for divorced and people in their financial. You never thought that was going to happen, I'm sure.
Absolutely not. Absolutely
where did that come from?
Yeah.
So where did that come from? If it didn't come from your thinking and worrying and wondering what was going to happen, it came from your creative brain saying, this is what is best for you. I know what's best for you. And it made it all happen. And so this is what we need to believe. Yes, we're going to go through a rough phase. And yes, we're going to feel terrible. But if we just play with this idea, well, maybe my perspective, I don't need to feel quite, what am I afraid of? Maybe I can play with it and not be so afraid. Maybe what I'm afraid of is nothing that's realistic. Because all my friends are telling me, don't worry, everything's going to turn out right. The Bible's is telling me everything's going to turn out right. And the fact that you can't see that right at the moment when you're in this situation doesn't mean it's not going to turn out right. It certainly will. There's this other thing we need to realize, that when we're going through a breakup, or even thinking about going through a breakup, there's this thing called oxytocin withdrawal. I don't know if any of your other guests have covered this, or in fact you've covered it, but we have this biological defense mechanism, because we're biological. When you think about how we're designed, the way this human species is designed is that a man and a woman get together, have children, and they stay together to bring up those children, to help those children, to make sure those children survive as well. So we have this chemical called oxytocin, which is sometimes called the attachment hormone, and it's designed to keep people together. So, but whenever you have this feeling or thought or situation that you might break up, you stop producing oxytocin, and it's literally a drug that you have a withdrawal symptom from. So you feel the same they say it's the same withdrawal symptoms. I don't know, but they say it is the same as a cocaine withdrawal. So you feel anxious, worried, stressed. Your thoughts, you get sweaty and your heart races at the mere thought of splitting up, because it's this oxytocin saying, I don't want you to split up. Biologically, it's not good for the children, if you like, in terms of evolution, biology, bringing up children. It's not, I'm doing everything I can to keep you together. So when you go through this, you're going through a chemical withdrawal when you end a relationship, or even when you're thinking about it. But like every chemical withdrawal, you're going to get over it. You're not going to feel so bad about, your body is going to adjust, and you're not going to feel so terrible about the situation you're in. But once you're going through it, of course, you're not going to feel good. And just say to yourself, okay, I'm going through oxytocin withdrawal. Yes, I have all these fears about the future because I don't know what's going to happen, but maybe things mightn't be so bad. Maybe I'll get through this, and maybe things will be a lot better. And maybe this is happening for a reason, a good reason, rather than me thinking it's a bad reason.
Wow, that is absolutely incredible. We've had a lot of people that have come on the show in the course of the last few weeks, even, that have talked about some of the psychological aspects of divorce and how to navigate some of those feelings. But I've never heard that. So that it makes total sense. Total sense. Well, I couldn't think of any better way to wrap up the show than to have that conversation, because I think that a lot of people that are here just They just don't understand that there is there really is a light at the end of the tunnel, and you have no idea what that looks like for you. And it's scary. You're going to feel all the feels along the way. I've been there. Liam's done it himself, and had to go through it himself, but you never know where it's going to bring, and this is, for me personally, it's brought me an amazing opportunity to help a lot of people. Same with you. And I think, that's the message, right? Is it's going to hurt. It's going to sting. And there are going to be some financial considerations you're going to have to navigate. And folks like us are here to help you with that. That's why certified divorce financial analysts and certified financial planners like myself exist, is to help people on the financial side of things and really navigate the decisions you're going to have to make there. And why folks like Liam exist as well, that, to help you through the psychological and all the emotional aspects you're going to feel. And that's why I'm a big proponent. And Liam, we didn't talk about this, but one of the things that I talk with everybody about is creating team you when it comes time to get a divorce, right? You want to have your financial person, you want to have your therapist, you want to have your divorce coach, you want somebody there to help you with the emotional aspects of things. You have your attorney there to help you with the legal aspects, and combining those forces and having those resources, and then surrounding yourself with loved ones, your family, your friends, people that are there for you when it gets gnarly. That's how you're going to make it through the other side and put yourself in a much better position moving forward. So I'm super appreciative of this conversation, Liam. This has been amazing. Where can people learn more about the work that you do and reach out to you if they have a desire to connect with you?
Well, actually, everything is just on my website, which is called liamnaden.com. It's just my name. I've got my own podcast called Let Yourself Off the Hook, and as you mentioned, and also my Growing in Love for Life series about relationships. And I've also got a free webinar if anyone would like to sign up, about what I call how to unlock your success brain, because you are designed for success. And the fact that most people don't realize this or don't think this isn't because it's not true. It's just because we've been taught all the wrong things about who we are, how life's supposed to work. But if you think about it biologically, doesn't it make sense that we're here to survive? That's the primary purpose of our biological makeup. And we have this machine, this brain that is there to make sure we do survive. And that means being happy. It means being fulfilled. It doesn't mean having problems. And all we need to do is learn how to use this machine. So I have this free webinar about how to unlock what I call your success brain, because your brain is literally a machine like a motor car. Once you learn how to drive it the right way, it's a pleasure, and it does everything that it's supposed to do. And it gets you from where you are to where you're supposed to be in an enjoyable way. And all you need to do is enjoy the ride. But if you don't use it the right way, if you don't know how it works, if you don't know how to operate it, you're going to end up with problems. And it's just going to be instead of a pleasurable experience, it's just going to be a struggle full of frustration. It really is the same with the brain, that's what it's designed to do. So I think the most important thing I would suggest to people is learn about this stuff a bit more. It's probably stuff you've never heard of, because I must admit, I've studied success and relationship stuff and personal, and I never was told about the way things work biologically. But I thought, well, it makes so much sense, because imagine trying to walk off a 10-story building and go up in the air and ignore the law of gravity. It doesn't matter. You might think you can go up in the air and pray and do all the, be motivated, but nature overrules everything. And nature, the success law of how you're designed to be, that overrules everything. So there's nothing more important than learning how you operate, how it works. And you're going to find it turns out to be a lot easier than you think.
Yeah, that's incredible, man. I appreciate, again, the conversation. This has been a wild ride. I've learned a ton, and I know our listeners did too. So, listeners, if you're driving right now, you're not in a position where you can jot down Liam's information, don't worry. It's going to be in the show notes for everybody to access. We'll be sharing this on all the social media channels and linking to his stuff. So don't worry, you'll be able to get in touch with him if necessary. You can always reach out to us through allegiantds.com, which is our Allegiant Divorce Solutions website. All my contact information is there as well. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, follow all the stuff on social media so you can get more access to more of this content, because we're going to be pumping out a lot of this every week after week. Wednesdays, the podcast is going to go live every Wednesday morning. So on a weekly basis, you'll be able to get more insight into some more of the financial nuances of divorce, but also the emotional and psychological aspects too, to help you get through this. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you, Liam, for being here with us today. I really appreciate your time, and we'll see you again next week.